Praise be Jesus and Mary. I'm a Catholic, religious, and a priest. I serve in the Carmel of Divine Mercy, and in this video, I would like to talk about one serious danger in a health crisis that is today called idolatry. I speak from the point of view of the one who seeks, not the honest, the truth. And I speak to all of you who are seeking and loving. In the situation of great uncertainty and fear, the man tends hastily to put the footing in false security. Therein lies the danger of idolatry. It consists in making oneself It is the beginning and the cause of the end of every evil, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church is worrying that it is contained of making God and honoring what is not God. Let us look at that in the Holy Scripture in several paradigmatic circumstances. First, the unfavorable situation of uncertainty in the absence of God. When they were leaving Egypt and when they were going to the Promised Land, they make a golden calf, a golden idol, who give them false security. They're looking at him, and then they're adoring him. It is the idol of false certainty. Then again, the favorable situation of the steward from the parable of, and he's in the control of supplies of food and drink, and uses that so he would be feeding himself, and then he would be hurting all others. This is the manipulation, and this is the idolatry of power and terror. And then the situation of great confusion, when Antichrist is manifested of the false Christ, who is frightening and who is seducing with temporary privileges, and men seduced and frightened bows to him. And that is how we have the highlight of all of the idolatry. In all three cases, man is blindness with the use, under the guise of self-interest. As Jean-Luc Moreau says, it is very seductive. And the divine position, but an idol is like a mirror. It doesn't open space for me, but closes me in oneself. It brings me back to my limitations and thus gives birth to frustration. This idolatrous world is virtual, artificially constructed on the ruins of the real world. It promises a lot, gives an illusion, quickly decays, and leads to ruin. Our circumstances of health crisis are similar to those in biblical examples. On the one hand side, uncertainty and fear, and on the other hand side, manifestation of power and pressures associated with the promise of privileges, or even just fundamental human rights that were previously denied. Also, some found themselves in a favorable situation with maybe large stocks. Therefore, we are concerned not to turn in idolatry, and we question the current reality. We do this in good faith, together with many seekers of truth, in responsibility for the overall good of man, for his physical health, but also for the mental and spiritual, not just for the physical, but also for the spiritual health, and for the eternal health, and for the eternal good. The questions rely on arguments for which sources are available. And here we bring this short version. Why the definition of pandemic has been changed so that infections with incomparably lower mortality than the previous ones can be presented as a huge problem suddenly. It has been confirmed that the PCR test can be false positive and false negative, and that without clinical and epidemiological data, it is not a sufficiently reliable means to diagnosis. How is it that then it has been declared and people are put in isolation only on the basis of them and thus deprived of basic human rights? Why doctors in the treatment of COVID-19 are not allowed to use proven beneficial drugs which have been approved for other diseases and conditions, and they are approved extremely expensive and unproven medications? Why systematically those who have been discriminated against, who have decided against vaccines, even those vaccinated can become affected, be asymptomatic and carriers of the disease, get sick and die? Why the talk of immunity in general is avoided, and why the specific immunity developed by the illness has not been taken more seriously? Why the consequences of vaccinations are not recognized, especially when it comes to long-term side effects? How to justify the persistent assurance that the vaccine is safe safe and effective when it is insufficiently tested and no one takes responsibility for the possible harm. Are healthcare organizations, individual physicians and scientists independent of the lucrative pharmaceutical industry and political lobbies? Why has the topic of the connection between vaccines and abortions been pushed out of the public by untruth, semi-information, manipulation? How come in Croatia, when many seem to be Christians, they still do not have a vaccine that is clear from abortions, while the church documents clearly are asking for the active struggle for the morally pure vaccines? Is this conformism with the culture of death? The rate of those who have survived from the COVID-19 less than 20 is 97%. Why then vaccination of children is promoted? Why the strict measures are being promoted to combat their infection? And what is the effect of these measures on their mental and social development? Does profit perhaps affect testing strategy, drug selection, and vaccine imposition? By which right the civil protection headquarters use intimidation as a way of working, and who now supervises them not to continue to do the same? Is there solid scientific evidence to justify some intra-church measures such as a ban on regular Holy Communion or sacraments? And finally, if there is so much illogics in all of this, why are those who question this are being silenced? The starting point for these questions are not beliefs, but facts. A well-meaning and reasoned discussion is desirable. Silencing and ignoring here, in this case, is unacceptable. Without the right answer, there is no responsibility for the overall good of man. There is no love here either. We are there in front of a dangerous threat to submit to the louder and more powerful ones by showing them illicit worship of idolatry. At the heart of idolatry is the will to power. Parascience wants to rule with the help of technology. Parapolitics wants to rule with the help of totalitarianism. Parareligion wants to rule by authoritarianism and violence against conscience. With all due respect and recognition of what is being right, such as sincere health care, helping the sick, and many other noble things, it is really very worrying when imperfect human activities, institutions, and individuals begin to use a religious term and seek absolute self-confidence with the purpose of proclaiming their own claims, ultimate truths, and they offer certain salvation. Imperfect means like the pseudo-sacraments and excommunication of those who have different beliefs. We all need a warning. Let us not overdo this. We are just people. Only faith goes to God, and to all human beings is verification. We should not impose anything by force, no matter how correct our attitude may seem to us. Let us show value to fruits. Anti-idolatry is not a struggle against man, but against the evil of untruth and the father of lies. So let's not fight against each other and not agree to quarrel. It would be nice if we would be more engaged within the church in the search for truth and quality answers. Thank God for all the good, but may we say that we did not need better and that everything was right. Can the sin, the New Testament, the scripture begins with the following words: in the beginning was the Word, Logos. By it all things were made, and by them all things were made. That divine Word, Logos, the body that became flesh, Jesus Christ, the foundation of reason and logic. In Him we have our life. To stand on the side of logic means to stand on the side of Christ the Logos, and to agree to illogic is to enter into the zone of Antichrist. Only the truth, brothers and sisters, can set us free. The truth is the demand of love, and in it the freedom is inalienable. Therefore, dear brother and sister, you may and you should seek the truth, ponder and question, and you have the inalienable right to choose freely and responsibly according to your conscience. You are not alone in that fight, in that struggle, in that battle. If your freedom and your life are suppressed on the outside, on the inside and in for eternity, no one can take them away from you without your consent. As Ernest Hemingway said, through the character of an old man, you can destroy me, but you cannot win. Let us not allow evil to take a little finger, because it could swallow us whole. Christ's logic is to give, not to take away our lives. Let us enter into his logics. For here is our hope, to pass through the door of love, the merciful love that restores our lost soul, gives us strength and comfort, and opens the door to others. In the face of the threat of idolatry, in the depths of the soul, in the sanctuary of consciousness, God strengthens us. God comforts us and calls us to surrender to Him. He promises us safe and eternal protection. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Don't have other gods with me. Do not make any idols or graven images. Do not bow down yourself to them. Do not serve them.